A little over 20 years ago, Lexus really shocked the industry when they introduced the all-new compact sports sedan known as the Lexus IS. Now, the IS was an entirely different vehicle because it was built to appeal to a much younger, more enthusiastic crowd versus the typical Lexus. And over the years, the IS certainly got its fair share of buyers, but it's always kind of lived in the shadow of its main competitors from BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and of course, Acura. Now, back in 2021, Lexus gave us an all-new version of the IS, which was technically more of a heavily reskinned version of the third generation car introduced back in 2014. And for 2023, as you can see this week, Lexus has loaned me this IS 350 F Sport with all-wheel drive. It's technically the model that most enthusiasts are probably going to end up purchasing, especially if you can't pony up for the V8 powered IS 500. And with a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6, around 311 horsepower, and all-wheel drive or standard rear-wheel drive, it certainly has all of the necessary specs to give enthusiasts what they're looking for if you want a compact luxury sports sedan. So if you guys have been in the market for something like this and you had your eye on a Lexus IS, how does the 2023 model continue to stack up in the segment? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling of this IS 350, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this compact luxury sports sedan. Lexus continues to offer a choice of several different engines. This model here has an engine that's one notch from the top dog, which is known as the IS 500 F Sport Performance. Now, unlike the IS 500 F Sport Performance that I had a chance to test last year, this model is the only vehicle in this segment that continues to offer a naturally aspirated V6. It's known as the 2GR FKS motor, which is a variation of the engine that you find under the hood of the current generation Toyota Camry. This engine is going to be phased out for a 2.4 liter turbo that we've also tested in the NX 350 and the RX 350. So get this V6 while you can. It's a 3.5 liter with gasoline direct injection. It also has port injection, double overhead cam, variable valve timing. It makes 311 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. The horsepower is unchanged from the third generation model when it first was introduced back in 2014. However, the torque figure went up from 266 to 280 pound-feet. It all goes out through a 6-speed automatic transmission. That's right, a 6-speed auto. There is no manual available. If you guys go for the rear drive IS 350, you'll actually get an 8-speed auto, but the all-wheel drive model drops it down by 2 gears. If you guys go for an IS 300 in rear-wheel drive, you'll have a 2-liter turbo 4, making 241 horsepower, while the IS 300 with all-wheel drive actually has a detuned version of this V6 making 260 horsepower, while the 500 with its 5-liter V8 makes around 468 horsepower. So again, lots of different powertrain options. However, this is the one that I feel most people are going to find is the sweet spot. Fuel economy is rated at 19 in the city, 26 on the highway. Premium gas is recommended. Lexus claims you should get to 60 in around 5.7 seconds. I've actually never 0 to 60 tested this vehicle, but we'll try that out, of course, when we get the vehicle out on the road. It has a top speed of around 142 miles an hour. And as this one sits, it weighs in at just over 3,800 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, I have to say, when Lexus first introduced the third generation IS back in 2014, I was not a fan of the exterior design. So this big, heavy refresh that they gave it back in 2021 brought it more in line with the Lexus family in terms of the design. And I think it's one of the best looking sports sedans that you're gonna find in the segment. And this is Lexus's smallest sedan in its lineup currently. You can see the headlights. My tester has an optional for around $1,100 premium triple beam full LED headlights. You have an LED daytime running light, LED turn signal. The F Sport handling package, as you can see, includes its own unique spindle grille with the intricate L's with the gloss black finish. You have lots of functional vents, some fake vents in the lower front skirt. But I love this color combination here with the F Sport handling package, along with the atomic silver color. For 2023, all the IS 350s have the F Sport look. However, there's now just a regular F Sport design package, which has the look minus the adaptive dampers, and there's also an F Sport handling. The difference in price is around $1,300. This one here has the latter, the F Sport handling package. Now, as you can see, moving around the side profile, I love the proportions of this car. It has a 110.4-inch long wheelbase. It has an overall length of around 185 inches long, so it's about 8 inches shorter versus something like a Toyota Camry. about almost 10 inches shorter than the Lexus ES, which technically outsells this vehicle 2-to-1. But I just love the overall rear drive proportions. You can see the wheels. My tester has an optional BBS 19-inch wheel for around $2,500. You can see it's a matte black finish, beautiful looking with the atomic silver paint. You have an F Sport handling badge there. And then you can see the brake rotors measure 13.1 inches in the front. You have twin piston calipers, which are kind of matte black painted. If you want bigger brakes with painted rotors, you can go for the IS 500. And my tester, as I mentioned earlier, all-wheel drive, so you have 235/40 R19 tires, fatter 265 tires in the rear. So again, staggered wheels, even though this is an all-wheel drive model. But moving back, you can see this really is a handsome looking car, especially this color combination with the circuit red Nulux interior. You can see the side mirrors are black painted because that's part of the F Sport package with an integrated turn signal. You just have a standard sunroof. This is $1,000 extra. Lexus does not offer a panel roof on the IS. Because remember, kind of an older design. Technically, they don't offer a panel roof on any of their sedans. Looking at this profile here, you can see the beautiful lines of the front carry over onto the rear, where you have the signature full LED light blade that Lexus has become known for. Unlike the newer NX and RX, however, it doesn't spell out Lexus in the back. You still have the old Lexus logo. There's a very subtle rear lip spoiler here, and then you can see the taillights are LED for the reverse lights, for the brake light and taillight. However, it's an incandescent design for the turn signal, which is kind of disappointing. There's just a very simple IS 350 all-wheel drive badge at the back, and then the rear bumper is a lot more aggressive on the F Sport. You have a very tasteful dual outlet exhaust with chrome tips. This engine sounds glorious, and it lets you rev it up pretty high, so let's go ahead and fire it up so you can hear how it sounds. And for an engine that is shared with a Toyota Camry, I have to say this IS 350 makes a really good exhaust note. But let's go ahead and look at the trunk capacity. Opening this up, you can see the IS continues to be a sedan only. There was a time where the company used to offer a wagon in the first generation, but you can see you have 10.8 cubic feet of storage space back here, which is about average for the segment. The seats still fold down in a 60/40 manner, and for those of you who care, this car does still come with a temporary spare tire, so you don't have to deal with run flats or a fix-a-flat kit. So now that we've established that the exterior of the IS is definitely handsome, let's go ahead and talk about the interior. Now, here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is technically the older style Lexus fob. It does come standard with the company's intelligent access key. You have the usual lock, unlock, open up the trunk, and panic. No remote start from the fob, but I suspect if you guys have access to the Lexus app, you should be able to start it remotely from your phone via the smartphone app. But opening up the door, you can see the silver exterior of my tester, atomic silver, is complemented beautifully by this circuit red Nulux interior. I love the fact that the red is kind of splashed almost everywhere in the cabin. It is a two-tone red. The upper part of the dash and the door panel has black accents, but I have to say, seeing the red here just makes this car look a lot more exciting, and it just feels a lot more youthful and sporty. These seats, you can see, they adjust in 12 different ways. They are heated and ventilated, and you have a 3-person memory on the driver's side. The leather itself is fake leather, but it has a really nice high quality but soft, supple feel, which is great. Lexus does a really good job with their seats and their interior quality. Looking at the dashboard or the door panel, you can see this is a slightly soft touch injection molded plastic, padded leather over here, more of that leather material on this part of the door panel. This right here is also got a really interesting design. Down here, I love that this is carried over to be red. It is hard touch plastic. My tester has the 14-speaker Mark Levinson stereo, which is optional. It's part of a $1,200 upcharge. Window controls, you can feel they have a high-quality feel to them, and they just have a nice, satisfying click. It's one touch for all four, and all the buttons and switchgear feel really nice. Sad to report, however, there are no power folding mirrors on this model. Now, getting inside, you can see this is a sports sedan, so you have a lower step-in height, obviously, but once you get in and shut the door has still a relatively solid sounding thunk, which is great because this is a very old platform that is nearly 10 years old. But starting the vehicle up, you can see the start-stop button is mounted high on the dash. And then once you push the button, you can see, unlike some competitors, Lexus offers a power tilt and telescoping wheel. You have the F Sport style gauges here, which you can see has the ability to kind of slide forward and back where the tack is floating, and it slides back to reveal a slightly smaller screen, helper screen. And then my tester has the smaller 8-inch touchscreen display, and it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, this is the old interface where it has that silly trackpad over here, and this has a wired connection for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. What Lexus basically did versus the pre-heavy refresh model or prior to 2021 is they changed the infotainment system. They moved it away. They took it out from being integrated into the dash, and they made it a tablet style, and they pushed it closer. So now this is a touchscreen. That wasn't the case in the earlier editions of this generation. You can see this is now a touchscreen. This model here has the smaller 8-inch display, like I said earlier, which means you don't have embedded factory GPS. If you have that option for an extra $1,700, you'll upgrade to a 10.3-inch display, which is still a little bit on the smaller side of the segment. A lot of competitors now at least do a 12-inch display, but this is probably the biggest letdown. But again, if you require something that's a lot more simple as opposed to complex, you're gonna really like something like this because it's just really kind of easy to use. But again, it is a ding on the interior if you guys want that latest tech. Now, when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see my tester for around $1,500 also has the full 360 camera with automatic emergency braking and cross traffic braking. You can see the resolution and graphic isn't wonderful. It has parking sensors front and rear. It has trajectory. It's nice that the car has a full 360 camera, but it doesn't give you the ability to do a perimeter scan. Although if you put the vehicle back into drive and you push this little view button back here, you can see it does do a little 360 scan, but this is kind of useless. A lot of Toyota and Lexus products do this as well. But again, there are better systems that you're gonna find from some of its competitors. You can actually go in there and you can change the color of the car, which is kind of interesting. I didn't realize that Lexus gave you that ability, but hey, at least it's some customization. But other than that, the rest of this cabin, however, is pretty well made. You have a really nice soft padding material with real stitching over the instrument panel hood. This area here is a soft touch injection molded plastic. This is also soft with faux stitching. You also have contrasting red stitching. You have a kind of an old school analog clock, which again, some of you may prefer that. Traditional vents. When Lexus refreshed the interior, they added circular vents for the passenger and for the driver's side. Over here you have dual zone climate control with these really old school touch sensitive buttons, which again, that graphic right there kind of reminds me of Radio Shack. The beauty about it being old is you have a volume knob and a tuning knob and traditional buttons over here, which is great. You also have actual buttons for the heated and ventilated seats. You can see here, no automatic function, heated steering wheel, which is nice. This controls the 6-speed auto, which again, super old traditional shifter, where this actually will screw off if you keep twisting it enough. Your drive mode selector is this large dial right here, which is nice because in the new RX, they actually got rid of the drive mode selector with an actual dial. You can see there's an eco, a normal mode, a sport, and a sport plus setting. And you can also turn the stability control on and off. And there's also a snow mode if you guys like. There's your parking brake hold feature. This is again to control the Lexus interface, or they don't call that technically, the Lexus touchpad. If you don't want to use that as a touchscreen, most of you will probably end up using it as a touchscreen. Cup holders here. I like how they also didn't use piano black plastic down here because this is going to show fingerprints like crazy. You also have, open this up, there are 2 USB charging ports. You can see just 2 USB-A's and an aux port. There's actually an aux port in this vehicle, which is old. The steering wheel itself, I mentioned earlier, is tilt and telescoping. You have paddles on the wheel, traditional controls for the Lexus Safety System 2.5, old cruise control stock. The horn sounds good. It doesn't sound puny, which is definitely nice. Above me here, you can see there's LED map lighting. You have a standard sunroof, which this also tilts and opens up. It has a manual retractable shade, of course. The seats are comfortable and supportive. Like I said earlier, the heat and ventilation works well. 12-volt power for both front seats, and then you can see here the glove box is damped but not lined with felt. It's a pretty decent size. You have an auto-dimming rearview mirror here, but no adjustable camera rearview mirror. My tester also has, for $200, push this button over here, is a power opening and closing rear shade, which is definitely nice. You don't typically find that in the segment. So the front seat, as you can see, has most of the stuff that you want a luxury vehicle to have, but keep in mind it has an old infotainment system, old controls, no heads-up display, but overall it is still comfortable and it is still really luxurious feeling. Let's go ahead and hop into the back seat, because this is another area where you're gonna have to compromise with the IS, because the back seat, Lexus says, only has 32.5 inches of legroom. 32.5 is very small, and you also have kind of like a sloping roof over here, so as I get in, I definitely have to duck my head, but once I get it back here, you can see At 5'7", there is still a pretty good amount of legroom. So 32.5 seems small by the numbers. In the real world, I'd say this is acceptable for somebody that's average height. You have rear seat air vents back here, which is nice. I like the fact that the red is carried over into the back, which is great. The door panel, you can see soft touch injection molded plastic material. You have more of that red leather on the door panels here. Window controls still feel really high quality. You have 2 storage pockets, which is nice. And then you can see here, fold this down, there's an armrest that gives you 2 cup holders. If you push this, I think, there we go, push that, that opens up to reveal the cup holders. There's no additional storage in here, but you can see there's still some LED map lighting back here, and overall the space is actually pretty usable in the real world, but if you have friends that are over 6 feet, the back seat is definitely going to feel a little bit tight. So I'll be honest, when I first had a chance to get behind the wheel of the very, very heavily revised IS about 2 years ago, I was pretty disappointed. I thought it was a rather lazy execution from Lexus, when they could have done an opportunity to fully redesign this vehicle. But I have to say, this IS 350 F Sport remains one of the only vehicles in its class to offer a naturally aspirated V6. And for those of you who want it, who don't want a turbocharged 4-cylinder, that's what everything else in the segment has, this is the only vehicle that soldier-ons like that, and it is priced along the same lines as those Turbo 4 competitors. So I've actually never had a chance to 0 to 60 test any Lexus IS. This is the all-wheel drive 350 F Sport, which means we have a 6-speed auto and we have about 311 horsepower. Let's go ahead and see what we can get. 0 to 60 wise, we'll turn off the traction control. It's in Sport Plus. Ooh, it actually takes off the line pretty well. Very nice, like the sound. Wow. All right, that performance is rather impressive. 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. I wasn't expecting that. Now, Lexus claims 5.7 seconds in their testing, which the Japanese, their testing numbers tend to be a little bit on the optimistic side. So the fact that we got a quicker performance in our real world testing is actually a good thing. 5.5 puts it right in line with all of its turbocharged competitors, which the time ranges from like the low 5-second range all the way into the low 6-second range. So this is kind of smack in the middle, and what you don't get with those competitors is the sound. This V6 is a lovely engine. It revs smoothly, it revs all the way to nearly 7,000 RPM, and let me tell you, it makes for a really nice drive, especially if you like the sound. It doesn't have launch control, but this thing definitely takes off well. 5.8 seconds there. This is with it going more slightly uphill. Again, solid performance, and you gotta love a naturally aspirated V6. I mean, this V6 is on its way out. It's gonna be replaced eventually by the 2.4 liter turbo that we've driven in the new Lexus NX and the Lexus RX, which the Toyota Highlander also just got that engine. So this engine is a throwback. It's an old engine, but it is still a really nice engine. It's smooth, it revs freely. It is lacking in low-end torque. For example, getting up this hill, I have to put my foot down pretty hard, but then once it starts revving and building up those revs, it sounds good and it feels quick once you get the revs above 4,000 RPM, which also Lexus is kind of amplifying the noise in the or within the interior. The engine definitely sounds a little bit fake, the noise. It gets louder, especially when you build up the revs and when you have it in sport, because anytime the revs go above 4,000 RPM, it almost sounds like an induction howl comes in and it's just being piped in through the speakers. It's not a bad noise, so I'm for a fake engine noise as long as it sounds good. But let me tell you, after spending so much time and all those Turbo 4s, this is a refreshing change. And the other beauty about the IS is the chassis dynamics. This vehicle handles extremely well. It's got good grip, it's got wide tires on the rear, 265s. It's got a really willing and just engaging chassis with good steering feel. I'm genuinely shocked at how much fun to drive this car is. I mean, what holds it back is the 6-speed auto. It's a little bit too widely spaced ratios, and it doesn't shift quick enough. It does have paddles where you can take manual control, but they don't respond very well to my inputs. So I found myself not using the manual mode, instead just letting the transmission shift its own gears in its own way, because that's the quickest time. But let's go ahead and try it one more time here. I want to see what you can get. That felt pretty good. God, I love that noise. Again, 5.5 seconds, consistent time, and right now the transmission, it's in Sport Plus mode, and will automatically try to hold the gears. It'll try to shift a little bit quicker. It's not still, like, I'm surprised that Lexus still hasn't found a way to use the 8-speed automatic that you get on the rear drive model. But putting it into normal here, you can hear the engine's not quite as loud in this mode because, again, they are kind of generating a little bit louder intake induction howl. But this model here, being the F-Sport handling package, does have the company's adaptive variable suspension, adaptive dampers, which the IS has a really smooth ride quality. In normal or eco mode, the dampers soften up and you can feel that the ride is controlled, it's very compliant, but then you put it into Sport Plus and it gets a little bit stiffer, but not overly stiff. There aren't times where this car feels like it's beating me up. It still feels very much like a luxury sedan. The steering is sharp and responsive and quick. And when you're not getting in on that engine, the noise levels in this cabin are actually pretty good. You don't really hear too much in terms of engine or road noise or wind noise. It reminds you constantly that this is a Lexus. Lexus has always been known for having a whisper quiet interior, and the IS is certainly no exception. In terms of the visibility, I can see out of the front pretty well. The A-pillar is on the thicker side. The view out of the back is fine. The view out of the sides is fine. Lexus has their safety system 2.5 is standard, so you have active lane trace assist, automatic emergency braking, forward collision alert, adaptive cruise control with low speed follow, lane keep assist. All of that is standard, but remember, it's technically the older system. Lexus has their safety system 3.0 that you'll find in the RX, which this model, again, is an older platform, so it's not going to be able to use that newest technology along with the infotainment system. That 8-inch display is definitely starting to look a little bit small. If there's also another area that this car gets dinged is not just in the tech, but it's in the fuel economy. This naturally aspirated V6, in my week's worth of testing, I've been averaging just under 21 mpg, about 20.8. Premium gas is recommended. You can get away on running this car on regular, but I suspect most of you should put premium in the car. On the highway, the best I could get was around 25 mpg. Now, that is about 3 to 5 mpg less than what I've gotten in the Turbo 4 competitors. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class in general was very, very fuel efficient, so that surprised me. That is something to keep in mind, but for those of you who like a V6, you're going to get that noise, trade-off. You're going to get that free revving nature, the fact that the engine likes to rev. And for some of you, you may be okay with the trade-off for fuel efficiency. I personally love the way this V6 sounds, so I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of fuel economy. But I think in my initial review of this redesigned, refreshed, heavily revised RIS, I was a little bit harsh, but I think after spending a week with this car, I see the appeal. Even though the infotainment system is god-awful and old, there is still something very appealing about this car, and the fact that Lexus has priced this vehicle in line with all the Turbo 4 competitors, and it's still a relatively, not bargain car, but attainable car, especially when you look at the average new car transaction price, and then you look at the overall package, the feel, the handling, the styling of this car. It still actually will put a smile on my face, and it really takes me back to when I was in high school, where I really loved a compact sports sedan like this. The IS very much just exudes that old school personality that you don't really get in a lot of its much more modern rivals. So when I first got a chance to drive the heavily revised IS back in 2021, I was perhaps a little bit too harsh with my overall review because I hadn't had a chance to really spend some time with a lot of its current competitors. I've driven the base 3 Series, the new Mercedes-Benz C-Class, the Audi A4, the Acura TLX, and of course the Infiniti Q50 and the Alfa Romeo Giulia. And then of course there's also the Tesla Model 3, which has been the heavy hitter. That is the sales leader in the segment. There was once upon a time the BMW 3 Series was. However, the Lexus IS, after spending the week driving the 350 F-Sport with all-wheel drive. Sure, this car is pretty easy to dismiss it as being an old school lump that has a terrible infotainment system and a thirsty, naturally aspirated V6. But as you guys saw, the performance of this engine is right on par with all of the Turbo 4 competition. 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, and a sweet exhaust noise with an engine that likes to rev to nearly 7,000 RPM. If there's one thing that's holding it back, is that 6-speed automatic transmission. I wish Lexus would upgrade it to their 8 or 10-speed transmission. I'm not entirely sure if they're ever going to do that. They're probably going to end up replacing this engine with the turbocharged 2.4 liter in the coming years. And the interior, while it is still a little bit on the cramped side, I love the design. That circuit red leather interior also looks really nice. The infotainment system is definitely a letdown. I'm surprised that Lexus hasn't put their new Lexus Interface infotainment system in this model. But if you guys don't care about that, it still has a wired connection for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's still one of the best handling sports sedans and one of the best riding sports sedans that you're going to find. But just keep in mind, you have to compromise with the slightly smaller cabin and the downgraded fuel economy and tech features. Now, if you are looking to purchase this type of vehicle, the beauty about the IS being so old is the fact that it is more affordable than most of its competitors. This car starts at around $40,800 for the base rear-wheel drive IS 300. Add $2,000 if you guys want all-wheel drive, which will swap out that 4-cylinder turbo with a naturally aspirated V6. If you guys want the 350, it's going to cost you at least $5,000 more versus the base IS 300. It starts at around $44,800. $46,900, of course, for this model because it is all-wheel drive. Lexus charges $2,000 for all-wheel drive. Add in the options that my tester has, such as the Mark Levinson premium sound system, the BBS wheels, the upgrade for the paint charge, the sunroof that this has, and the premium triple beam LED headlights and that power rear shade. My tester with destination comes into just over $55,000, which 55 grand is right in line with something like a BMW 330i. Mercedes-Benz C300 4MATIC is going to be about $5,000 more expensive, comparably equipped. And of course, the Audi A4 is also going to be priced around $55,000. Really, the only cheaper option is going to be the Acura TLX. You can have that for around $52,000 for a fully loaded Advance. It is a bigger car, but some would say that competes more along the lines of the ES350, which Lexus also continues to offer. But with the company moving around 22,000 of these in all of 2021, it actually surprisingly still outsold something like the Audi A4, and it was only about 8,000 units behind the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. So there are still a good amount of people that are buying this car, and I'd argue that with its naturally aspirated V6 and more affordable price tag and reputation for build quality and reliability that Lexus is known for, this is still a solid pick in the segment. Just keep in mind, it's not going to be the most technologically advanced, nor the most fuel efficient, nor the quickest, but it's a really well-rounded sports sedan. So with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Lexus IS 350 F Sport. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.